Good morning, afternoon, or evening, folks, and welcome to Cast of All Trades, the show where we talk about developing skills, exploring ideas, and following curiosity. I'm your host, Orion Siebert, and in this episode, I have the pleasure of talking with Emma Lightbown, a model, stylist, and podcaster. I ask Emma about the do's and don'ts of the fashion industry, why designers make such ridiculous clothing sometimes, how do you prevent creative burnout, how can we improve our style, and much more. This was a great episode for me personally because I've recently taken an interest in learning about style, fashion, and design in my own clothing. It was delightful to talk with Emma, and I'm especially grateful that she was willing to sit down with me for an interview. If you want to catch more episodes like this, where I'm learning about new and interesting topics right alongside you, then make sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on more episodes coming soon. I believe that about covers it, so without further ado, let me introduce you to Emma Lightbown. Emma, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very nice to meet you.
Likewise. So, I want to break this interview into two general parts. I've been trying my best to prepare but not over prepare for this. So, I'm hoping that we can sort of ride that fine line of getting good information out there while at the same time being welcoming and good for people who are like me, not very knowledgeable in the fashion space. So I'd like to start off with a couple questions about the fashion industry and your experience with it. Then later on transition more in towards some tactical advice on developing one's own style and fashion. That sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Great. So first question is just out of sheer curiosity for me. When people think of the fashion industry, one often first thinks of many of the weird clothing that you might see presented on TV, for example, such as some upside down dress or clothing made from truck tires. Why do these pieces exist? Are they made to be like art pieces, marketing pieces to draw in investors? Or is there some sort of trickle down effect of sorts where elements of these pieces, I don't want to call them ridiculous out of respect for the people who make them, because I recognize that there's a lot of amazing work that goes into many of these pieces. So I'll go with unique. Is there anything that perhaps trickles down into everyday clothing from this?
There definitely is. I do think there are those pieces that are done purely for creativity and artistic purposes. I think there's also pieces that are done to get publicity. I think lots of the majority, though, I do think trends trickle down from those very extremes. So it might be that you see a very extremely kind of strong silhouette, like an exaggerated shoulder that's really extreme that no one in their right mind would wear because you wouldn't fit through doorways and you'd take somebody's eye out. But that will trickle down through the designers, through the kind of higher end high street, through into the more affordable brands that we all know. Sometimes it takes a season, sometimes it takes a couple of seasons, but a lot of the main trends that you see everyday people wearing, you can trace those back up the ranks, as it were, into those more high end designers.
Okay, so it's sort of like a Overton window of sorts for fashion, where you'll present a extremely unique out there idea that shifts people's perspective of, well, this one thing that I saw on TV is over the top, absolutely ridiculous, that extreme silhouetted shoulder, but perhaps now this piece of clothing that I might like, where it has just a slightly silhouetted shoulder, might be more acceptable in public. Is that sort of what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is that kind of filtered down, almost watered down version that, you know, the everyday regulars of us can get on board with, but you know where that's come from and the idea behind it, and there's purpose behind it and thought and intention, and that actually it's not always just to grab a headline, which I think some pieces very much are. But I think the majority of designers, their whole ethos and inspiration and goal is to have people, and as many people as possible, wearing their designs. So although they might make the extreme pieces for runway, for the catwalks, they know that everyday person isn't going to be buying those, but that eventually that trend will filter down.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I've been playing with this idea in my head for a long time and asking people, thinking, why do they make these pieces? But for trickle down and for marketing, for publicity, now that makes much more sense to me. So that personal question out of the way. Why choose the fashion industry for you? You started modeling at 17, then, from what I've studied, I've bounced around to different parts of the industry over the years. So why the fashion industry for you?
So I have always been very creative. I love creating things. At school, I loved creating things. All of the artistic subjects were the ones that I excelled in and that I really enjoyed. Give me art over maths any day. But when I was at school, it wasn't necessarily an avenue that was pushed in terms of careers. I come from a small town in the north of England, and it's much more sensible, kind of practical professions that the schools tend to promote. I remember having a conversation with the careers advisor where she told me that she thought I should be a nurse. And I was very much like, I don't think so. I'm not very sympathetic. I can't imagine how I would be a good nurse. I like, if there's an arts and crafts department that needs somebody to run it in the hospital, maybe that's where you'd find me. But actual nursing, very much no. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school, only that I wanted to do something creative. So whilst everybody else that I went to school with went off and went to college and then onto university, I took a year off to kind of figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. And I always liked the idea of TV and making things and making TV programs and journalism and that type of area. And so I was studying media at college, and then I just fell into the fashion industry in that my a family member entered me into a modeling competition with some pictures that I didn't even really know that she had. They were just random pictures that had just been taken at Christmas, and she'd entered me into a modeling competition, and I got through to this final, and it was very intimidating. Everybody else was very tall and very blonde, and I am not either of those things. So I'm 5'7", which is quite short in terms of models, and I'm a redhead, so obviously I'm quite different to everyone else. And I went to this competition feeling very much like I didn't want to be there, and I think that was written all over my face. And I think it was that attitude of, not that I don't care, just that your opinion doesn't really bother me. And I think that's a really key thing within the modeling industry and within working as a model, is that you have to have a really thick skin, like an invincible level thick skin, because you just take hit after rejection. It's constant. And I think the people who were running this competition could see that in me. And so I ended up being scouted from that competition and fell into modeling. And I just loved the industry straight away, because it's that creativity. So you would work on something different every day. It was always a new project. It was always a new concept, a different shoot. I could come up with my own ideas and put a team together, and we'd shoot things. And it was just a really brilliant way of expressing myself creatively. And then I moved into styling many years later. And I also, within that, have done props and set building. And there's never a better day for me than when I am sat at my kitchen table making something ludicrous for an upcoming shoot, because it's just so fun. And I just think, oh my God, my teenage self would think this is the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You mentioned that you wanted to go into a creative field, and absolutely from what you're describing, this feels like a creative field. How do you prevent creative burnout, especially since you seem to always be doing something creative? I get this a lot. I do a lot of inventing and trying to build new products, my own. It's definitely a very similar but different side of creativity in some ways. But oftentimes I personally feel my creative burnout of, I've been banging my head against a wall trying to think of something new for this one product or for this one idea. How do you try to work through that creative burnout or try to prevent it?
So I don't find that I get creative burnout often, but I think taking myself out of my regular situation and going and doing something else that I find inspiring will always really help. So obviously a lot of what I do is very fashion related, but if I am feeling a bit stilted and a bit writer's block when it comes to creative ideas, I might go off to one of the galleries in London and just have a look at an exhibition or go see some artistic work that's beautiful and creative and really inspiring, but not related to what I'm doing. And I think it's just giving your brain that kind of space, that bit of breathing room to get away from focusing on your ideas and look at other people's kind of ideas and creativity that aren't necessarily linked to what you're doing. I think that just always helps me. I'm a big believer in that. I sometimes just need to go outside. I just need to go outside and go for a run because it's beautiful out there if only you look. And so I think sometimes I'm like, right, I'm stuck. I don't know where I'm at now. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just going to go outside for a bit. I'm going to go take the dog for a big walk. And by the time I come back, the ideas will be there. And I think part of that is getting away from screens. We spend so much time on our phones and on our laptops and watching TV and just fixated on screens that I think sometimes the best ideas come when you are away from the screens.
Absolutely. I recently did an episode all about studying boredom and why we now think of boredom as this problem to be cured, and yet in antiquity, boredom was a good sign. It meant you were safe, it meant you were healthy, and it meant you have time to think and to problem solve and to innovate. And I can't think of how many times I've done exactly that. I've gone for a walk, or I've like had shower thoughts, or just something totally unrelated to what I was working on, and suddenly inspiration strikes of I know exactly how to solve these three problems I was having, and I now have thought ahead to figure out, oh, that's how I'm going to solve these future problems I know I'm going to have with this thing. So I would absolutely agree with you there that sometimes just getting out of your own way, pulling it back from the screens, and just sometimes even just sitting with your thoughts for a little while of doing nothing, just not distracting yourself is perhaps the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think I always say that I kind of suffer with busy brain. So my brain is from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, it's 100 miles an hour in there. There's always a million things going on. And so trying to take myself out of that by doing things where I have to focus on something else, whether that is going for a walk or it's doing yoga or whatever, or going paddleboarding, because if I'm not concentrating paddleboarding, I'm going to get wet. So it is that thing of if I go and do something else where I have to really concentrate and think of something else that's completely unrelated, that's when all of a sudden my brain just relaxes and goes, let's quiet the noise. Here's the solution to the thing you were after. I'm like, oh, there it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. You mentioned that as you were going into your modeling career, that something that really helped you out there was having thick skin. And perhaps the best way that I can describe it from how you were explaining it to me is it was almost like you exuded this mentality of, I don't have to be here, I'm willing to walk away. And that's sort of what I've seen something very similar in my life as I've been trying to be an inventor. I create products and I pitch them to companies, and I get a lot of rejections all the time, and it's great. I love it. It's almost a game now of how many no's can I collect. And it's a very similar idea of you have to have thick skin, but it's also when I hear you talking about being able to, like you saying that I don't have to be here. I don't necessarily want, not perhaps I don't want to be here isn't the right way to phrase it, but that exudes something to people. It's not, you're almost going into it with a nonchalance, perhaps the best way to put it, where other people are there, they're begging, they're really projecting out there, I need this, this is very important to me. And that very much pushes people away. So if that nonchalance was one skill that you've developed to help you in the fashion industry, or some other skills that perhaps you weren't expecting to help you out that you did ultimately develop.
Definitely work ethic. So I think having a really strong work ethic, always wanting to create the best thing possible, I think is incredibly important. And having that knowledge that everybody is equal and that everybody should be treated equal. Whenever I have been on set, everybody is important. That shoot doesn't happen without everybody being there and everybody working together. And I've been on sets previously where there is this mentality, sometimes it's from the models, sometimes it's from the photographer, sometimes it's from the makeup artist, that they are the most important person on set, and that, you know, if it wasn't for them, none of this would be happening. And that kind of sense of ego and entitlement is something that I really, really hate. And so I remember doing a really big shoot, and we turned up to the location the day before. It was in the middle of nowhere in Wales, in this mansion. And we were doing this huge kind of shoot for this furniture brand. And when we'd got there, we'd kind of had to move, like the crew were moving these rugs to like get the furniture in for the next day. Anyways, they'd moved these rugs. There was glue all over the floor where these rugs had been stuck down. And so they were like, oh my God, we're going to have to clean the floor. We're all like, we're going to have to scrub this floor. And I was like, right, can somebody get me a pair of gloves? Like, I just need gloves because you've paid for me to have this manicure. I've had this manicure done, but if I scrub the floor with you, I'm going to ruin it. So is there some rubber gloves that I can put on? And they were like, you can't scrub the floor. And I was like, why can't I scrub the floor? And like, everybody else is going to scrub the floor. This is a team effort. We all need to scrub the floor, or the floor's not going to be done for the morning. What are we going to do? And they were like, we can't believe that you're going to scrub the floor. And I was like, but why wouldn't I scrub the floor? I'm no more important than you are. Like, we're all going to get down on our knees and we're all going to clean the floor, and it's all going to be fine, because then the picture will be brilliant. But if there's glue on the floor, the picture's not going to be brilliant. And then I'm going to be upset about that because I want it to be just as good as you do. So I think it is a really big thing of that, like having that mentality of working as part of a team. You're no more important than anyone else. Everybody is so equally vital. And that just being willing to put the hard work in. I think because I came from a background of not necessarily, I was never the prettiest girl in the room. Like, I was never the girl that everybody said, oh, you should be a model. I went to school with those girls who everybody would always go, oh my God, you're so pretty. Have you thought about being a model? And I tell you now, those people don't make great models because they think that it's just going to come easily to them. And I knew that it wasn't. I knew that I would have to go to like hundreds of castings to be right, to get that job, to be the perfect thing that they wanted, because it wasn't as easy for me. Because most clients, when they're casting, unless they were specifically looking for a redhead, I think I was always unexpected. In their minds, they'd gone, oh, well, we'll cast a brunette or we'll cast a blonde. And then I'd walk in and be like, hi. And they're like, oh, we'd not thought about a redhead. And I'm like, I'm here. Mm-hmm. And so I think because I always had that thing, I felt I had to work a bit harder. I think that just instilled was, you know, really worked with my good work ethic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you were describing that glue on floor experience, a new motif perhaps for a future shoot, but you mentioned this idea of people perhaps thinking that they're better than other people, that like, oh, this wouldn't happen because of me. And I wanted to ask a bit about that of, did you ever get the feeling of being placed on a pedestal, of people around you saying, oh, you're a model, that must mean that you're better than us, or that, I think that's the best way that I can phrase this, of people around you placing you on a pedestal. Like, did you ever really experience that? If so, how did that affect you? Or perhaps did you see it in other people?
Yeah, so when I modeled, I would very, very rarely tell people what I did. So if I met somebody, particularly if I met somebody for the first time and they asked what I did for a living, I would either say, oh, I'm a freelancer, or, oh, I work in the fashion industry. And I would be as vague as possible, because I learned very quickly that I used to get two very distinct reactions. One was they would say, what do you do? And I would say, oh, I'm a model. And we would either get this kind of look of incredulous, like, oh, really? Yeah, really? Actually, me? They let gingers do it and everything. Or you would get the flip side of, oh, wow, really? And I'd be like, oh, both of them gave me the ick, if I'm honest. I didn't really like either reaction. Yep. So I learned very quickly that I just didn't say it. I would avoid saying it as much as possible. It was only if people had seen me in something and then they would go, oh, was that you? I was like, yeah, that was me. And so, yeah, I think it is it's a very weird one, because my family got used to it very quickly. They were just fine that they might open a magazine and I might just randomly be there and it would just be like, oh, look, there she is. but there was no big kind of thing to it. But I always found it weird when other people are odd about it, when they have that kind of pedestal thing, because you are literally just doing a job. It's just that you are kind of genetically built for that job. But then I think there's other people in other industries that are genetically built for their jobs. It's just weirdly models are seen as this kind of, I don't even know how to put it. Like, I wouldn't put it as somebody to put on a pedestal, but I think some other people do, which gives me
Hmm.
the ick.
Yeah, I get that. We had a very similar reaction. So, long story short, my brother ended up doing some like a temporary modeling contract for his university to do a bunch of sports photo shoots. He is one of the least athletic people when it comes to standard sports I know. He's a big bodybuilder, big gymnast, but they wanted him to do pictures for basketball, for baseball. Like that is not the body type that would play basketball or play baseball, but whatever. And our family just joked about it with him the whole time of, "Wow, you're so sporty now." And that didn't that didn't really affect how we viewed him with stuff, but it would be a very similar reaction with some other people of they would often laugh and say, you of all people were a temporary model for this thing." And it's just interesting how people perceive this idea of, like you said, it is very much a genetic thing for the most part. Of some people are blessed with a genetic lottery, from what people believe, to say, "Oh, you are destined to be a model," or other people perhaps might not. And it's just this weird thing of, I'm applauding you because you have wonderful genetics, or I don't know. It's again something that I've just found interesting over the years. You've talked a bit about your family as you were growing up in the fashion industry. So, how did your relationship with that industry change as you continue to grow up more and have a family of your own?
So I think I've remained in the industry. It's not that I suddenly got a family and then was like, oh no, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Because actually, it is a family business now, as it were. So my son, we modeled together all throughout my pregnancy. He was in there just quite happily working away. And when he was born, we did lots of mum and baby stuff together. And he's done various shoots throughout his life as well. And my husband is a photographer, just to fulfill the cliche right up there. You've got to love a model photographer cliche. Although I'm a stylist now, so it's fine. Still quite a cliche within the industry that we all marry each other. We're all very interbred. And so I think as a stylist, I was always like this, but I think it then really took it up a notch when I became a mum as well. So because I've been on the other side of camera and I know how uncomfortable and how miserable and how cold it can be being a model, I think I, as a stylist, go above and beyond when it comes to looking after the models. I always say that actually the model's morale and the model's comfort is one of my personal biggest jobs. Because if you have a model who is freezing cold or really uncomfortable in what they're wearing, or they've been stood there for hours because everybody's having a chat about the light and about this and about that, and she's freezing cold, or she's in really uncomfortable shoes, or it's just she's in something like skimpy and we're all just having a chat and she's having to stand there, I'm always the first one to say, right, no, not appropriate, let's look after her, because it's awful if you're stood there. And often I think people have this perception that the models are put on a pedestal and you're the top of the tree, but often on shoots you're really not. You're the kind of the last piece of the puzzle that everybody forgets about until it's time to point the camera at you, and you will be stood around waiting for ages in really uncomfortable things and really cold things or really hot things or whatever it is. And so I think just having that sense of care for another human being is a huge part of my job, and just making sure that nobody says stupid things. So the amount of times, because when I modeled, it was different. People were less kind of socially aware. I think now people are a lot better at being emotionally intelligent and not saying stupid things to people. But I remember being on a shoot and the photographer, there was a group of us, and the client had said, all right, so I want Emma here in the middle at the front, and then this girl here and that girl there. And the moment the client had walked away, the photographer had gone, Emma, can you just go stand here and then just turn this way? And I was like, oh, okay, it's literally just the back of my head, but fine. I don't care. I'm still getting paid the same as everyone else. And when the client came back, she said, why have you moved her? And he didn't really whisper it, but he turned to the client and went, I don't like her face. And I properly laughed. I fully laughed out loud because it was such a ludicrous thing to say. I don't like her face. And I was like, cool. But it was just such a terrible, like, it was a horrible thing to say to somebody else. They might have been mortified by that. Or I've had photographers say to me, can you just turn this way? Because, you look a bit big at that angle. Oh, good, thanks. And so I'm always really aware that if those things get said to you, that can kind of crush your spirit a little bit. And if you don't have a thick skin and then you have to stand in front of camera and try and perform, yet inside you're dying because somebody's just said something awful to you, I think this is why I'm very kind of militant about the model's morale and about the things that people say around them. Like, don't be inappropriate, don't be rude, think about what you're saying to an actual human, not just a clothes horse who's wearing the things that you want to sell, and be nice. So yeah, it's one of those industries. I think people still get away with saying things that in any other industry you'd be like, excuse me, HR.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a number of things that you touched on there that I've been thinking about more, not just in my professional life, but in life in general, such as people viewing other people as not human, I guess the best way I can describe it. We think of, for example, celebrities. A lot of people just seemingly forget, oh yeah, that person eats food, they drink water, they have problems, they have psychological issues just like everyone else. We seem to forget that the people that we see on screen or the people that we listen to in our ears, including me, are human beings. Like, we have our own individual thoughts, emotions, actions, all of this stuff. And yet, even though we've been quote unquote more socially connected than ever before, it feels like we've disconnected the human being from who they are, if that makes any sense, more so than ever before as well. Where we see massive figures online, like let's go with, I don't know, Donald Trump is the first person that comes to mind for me, where people see this big billionaire businessman running for president of the United States, and they don't think of him as a person. They think of him as, a lot of people think of him as the devil incarnate or some godly entity. And I think, what led you to that conclusion? This person is a human being, just like anyone else. And it amazes me that we still have this, or if it's perhaps just become more pronounced, as you've mentioned in your experience in the fashion industry. And from what you've said, it just sounds very psychologically taxing, where people are just oftentimes standing around being treated as props for the clothing to be presented as. That's sort of how I interpreted it as you were talking. But it's amazing just to see and hear and learn more about this. So you've discussed a bit of your tips about being in the fashion industry, some of the problems of it. And you probably hear this all the time from people who are wanting to get into the industry, either as a model or a designer or a stylist or whatever. I'm going to guess that people ask you advice all the time to say, how can I get into the industry? Can you get me a foot in the door? So I'm going to try to mix up a little bit. If you had to summarize your advice into 3 do's and 3 don'ts, what would those be? Feel free to take a minute to think about it if you need to. But
Well, I've definitely got a few there already. So I would say a do is to network. It is very much an industry of who you know, as well as obviously what you know, but networking is massive. Another do would be helpful. My biggest thing when I have assistants emailing me wanting to be on shoots is they come on and they tell me that they can do this and they can do that, and this is what their goals are. And what I want to know from my assistants, and this sounds very basic and potentially a bit mean, is that, can they make me a really good cup of tea? So when I am frantic busy and I've not sat down all day and I've not eaten and I'm really like up against it and I've got models coming all over and clients and I've got clothes coming out my ears, all I need sometimes is somebody to go, Emma, I've made you a cup of tea, it's on the side. Because that's one of those things that I'll completely forget to do. But if I get an assistant who is willing to go make tea and knows that that is not above them or below them, it's just part of the job, I will give them the world. I'll be like, what information do you need? What do you need to know? I know somebody else who needs an assistant. I can put you in touch with this people, because it's all about sharing that information. But I always think that that's a really crucial thing. And all of the assistants that I've used can make a really good cup of tea. Or just know that they might need to throw some water at me at some point, because I won't have drunk anything all day because I'll have just forgotten, because I'm busy and I'm in the middle of it and I'm creating things and it's the best. But I'm then later on going to feel awful because I just don't look after myself.
I get that. I get that all too well.
It's difficult, isn't it? So yeah, definitely network. Definitely like learn to make a good cup of tea and be open to assisting. And another do is just get on set. So I didn't train for anything that I've done. You don't really train for being a model, but you definitely like, you can go and train to be a stylist. So you can either go to university, you can do various courses, you can learn from being an assistant. I learned from being on set as a model. I watched everything that went on. I asked questions to the stylist. I learned as I went along. But the best experience that you can get and the best place your knowledge is going to come from is from being on set. So whatever it takes to be on set, whether that is making the tea, sweeping up, carrying the boxes, whatever is needed, the place you will learn the most information from and be able to network is by being on set. So they're my kind of 3 do's. My don'ts are, don't try and steal people's clients, because it's just shady and wrong. And I've had it previously where I've been on set with somebody who was new to me as an assistant, and whilst I was in the other room, I could overhear them talking to the client about how they could do the job cheaper than I could. And I was like, oh, okay. So I literally went in and went, can I have a word? Took them outside and told them to leave. I was like, I'm not having you on set. I'm not having you try and undercut me. You don't have the years of experience that I have. I have this client for a reason, and I don't think you could do this job. And also nobody in the industry is going to want to work with you if that's how you're going to behave. So don't ever do that. Awful. What other don'ts are there? I would say don't have an ego. Don't be one of these people that believes your thing is the most important thing when it comes to a shoot, because it's really, really not. I will quite often say to a photographer, I have styled them from head to toe. And if literally you see an earring, I'm okay with that, because if that's the best picture, that's the best picture. It doesn't matter that it's taken me days or weeks to find all these other pieces. If the picture is this and we see an earring, fine. If we see the full thing, great. But I don't care either way. I just want the best pictures. And you'll have to stop me if I'm not allowed to say this word. But my last one is basically don't be a dick. I think it's just really, I think people really don't, they can't underestimate, they can't figure out enough how important it is just to be nice. Be nice, get on with people. There's going to be people on set that you don't like and that they're not your kind of people. That's fine. You might be on set with them for a day or two. Everybody is just doing their job, whether you like them or not. Like particularly on when I've done commercials and you have a director and you have a first AD, obviously first ADs are notoriously terrifying and very shouty. And I always, like with my assistants and things, I'm like, don't think that that's who they are as a person. They're just doing their job. Like, so if they shout at you, they don't mean it horribly. It's not a personal attack on you. That's just them doing their job. Don't get me wrong. There are definitely people out there who are just being dicks and who are shouty for no reason. But I just think if you want to work in the industry, just don't be a dick. Everybody wants to go to work and just have a fun time. Mm-hmm. Like nobody intentionally sets out going to work to have a horrible time. So it might be, as we were saying earlier about celebrities and things, there's always other stuff going on that you don't know about. So I think just be kind, be respectful of everybody, and don't be a dick. Just try and get on with everyone and just really enjoy the opportunity you're being given.
It amazes me how sometimes the most simple piece of advice can be the best. Don't be a dick. Just
Yeah.
show up, do your job. It's like, yeah, sometimes that really is all you have to do. And it
Yeah,
amazes me
I know
how
it's not
some people.
groundbreaking. I apologize that it's not groundbreaking advice, but it is the simple things.
No, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking. And I love that it's not. Because even today, sometimes I look around and I think to myself, wow, this person doesn't even know the basics of don't be a dick at work. You don't
Yeah.
have to be all smiley, sunshine, and rainbows, but you don't have to give me the stink eye either. It's.
And also, I think you don't have to necessarily be infallible. I don't need you, particularly as a junior or as an assistant, I don't need you to turn up and know everything. That's fine. I'm fine if you need to come to me and say, I don't know how to do this, or this is a problem, or I'm like, that's absolutely fine, because we're all there to help each other to learn. It's, you know, it's all fine. We're all still learning. I just think, but if you turn up and your attitude is, this is below me, or I don't want to work with that person, or like, I went out last night and I'm hungover and I don't really want to be here, then I'm just like, yeah, you're not my person. You're not my people. Go away.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, in summary, learn to network, make you a cup of tea, just be nice. I feel like that
Yeah,
sums it up quite well, and
that's it.
some of the
That's
best
it.
advice I can,
Exactly.
some of the best advice I could probably hear.
Yeah, the tea thing, like it can be your drink of choice. I tell you now, I
No, no,
can't make
no,
coffee.
only
I
tea.
don't I don't drink coffee. So whenever anyone asks me to make them a coffee, I apologize profusely because it's going to be awful. But yeah, being able to make a good cup of tea or a good cup of coffee for somebody will get you very, very far in life, I promise.
Yep. Don't worry, I'm not a coffee guy either. So, why do you consider to be fashion a bit more important? I want to transition a bit away from the career fashion industry side, more towards a bit more of the personal, tactical stuff we can do.
Yeah.
So, why do you consider fashion to be so important?
I think fashion is hugely overlooked when it comes to the impact it has on us, on our confidence, on how we feel about ourselves, on how we present ourselves to the world. There's some stat that somebody has made a judgment on you within 3 seconds of meeting you before you've even opened your mouth. And that judgment comes from your appearance. Now, as we were talking earlier about genetics, there's going to be things that, you know, genetically go in your favor. If you've got a particularly friendly face, it's always going to go in your favor. My husband has a permanent scowl face, but I see through it, and I know that under there he is happy, really. He might not look it on the outside, but inside he's dancing. And so you make the most of what you can by changing the things that you can change. And so for me, what I love with fashion is it's not permanent and it's ever evolving, and it's all a unique expression of our individuality. I am a huge believer in that it's being able to express who you are as a person without opening your mouth and saying a word. And actually, I think I approach it in a very unconventional way as a stylist, because there's lots of stylists out there who will say, right, for this body shape, you've got to wear this thing. For this type of hair color, skin color, you've got to wear this thing. And I hate all of those rules. I think they are all too prescriptive. They are just too rigid. And I actually believe that you should just be wearing things that make you feel really good. And that's the whole thing, because if something makes you feel good, I think gives you that extra boost and that extra confidence to tackle when life is difficult, or when you need that extra bit of confidence, be that going on a date or going to an interview or just showing up to a family event where you know that it's going to be awful and traumatic. At least if you turn up and you feel really confident when you walk in, it's like having that extra kind of suit of armor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, for the fashionably incompetent, such as myself, uh, where should we begin with improving our styles? What might be some core principles that we might want to work with?
Okay, so I always suggest to people that actually And it's not in a vain way, it's not in a selfie way, it's not in a let's share it to Instagram, but take a picture of your outfit every day. Okay, and just save them in your phone, because then what you can do is when you start to get a collection of them, you can go through and figure out what looks good on you from the things that you already have and what things don't look great on you. Because I think when we look in the mirror, we get a very different view of what other people see. So, and it's not necessarily just a body dysmorphia thing. I think lots of us look in the mirror and go, oh my God, I look massive, or oh my God, my like hair looks gross, or oh my, like whatever it is. And I think actually, if you take a picture of it, and it can be a mirror selfie, you can set up a timer and go stand against a door, whatever it is. I think you can start to look at yourself subjectively and look at the clothes that you're wearing subjectively rather than it feeling really personal. And so then you can start to build up an idea of actually that color doesn't look great on me. I look ill that day. Why did I look ill that day? Was I ill that day? Or is it just the shirt that I'm wearing is making me look ill? And so you can start to figure it out that way. But for me, it's also just losing your sense of kind of caring what other people think. So quite often I've worked with so many people, particularly I worked with this lady who was just so lovely and she'd really lost her way with style. And like 3-4 years previously, her husband had bought her a pair of red suede knee-high boots. And she'd got them out of the box and she loved them. They were incredible. She was obsessed with these boots, but she never wore them. She'd never worn them. She'd had them for 3 or 4 years and she'd never worn them because she was really worried what other people would think. And I was like, okay, firstly, that's none of your business, because what somebody else thinks is irrelevant to you because that's not your opinion. That's their opinion and they can have it and that's fine, but that's not your opinion. You don't really need to care what their opinion is. That's like taking somebody's opinion on, I don't know, music and going, well, I can't possibly say that I like Taylor Swift because somebody else is going to tell me that that's a terrible thing. Yeah, but that's fine. I love Taylor Swift. I will stand on that hill. That's absolutely fine by me. And if somebody else goes, well, I don't like Taylor Swift, I'm like, that's cool. Who do you like? You don't have to like the same things as me. And so eventually I had given her the challenge and I just said to her, I was like, right, this week, I want you to wear those boots 3 times. I want you to wear those boots. Okay. I don't care where you wear them. You can go to the supermarket in those boots. You can go out for dinner in those boots, but I want you to wear those boots. Even if it's for an hour, but you have to leave the house and you have to wear those boots. And when I spoke to her the following week, she was like, oh my God. She went, I wore the boots 3 times. She was like, I have never had so many compliments in my life. And I was like, do you know why you had the compliments? And she was like, why? And I was like, because you felt good in the boots. It's not specifically about those boots. I imagine they're great, don't get me wrong. I'm like, but it's how you felt in those boots. She went, the first time when I went out, she said, I did feel a bit nervous in them. She said, and then straight away, somebody gave me a compliment. And then all of a sudden I felt really different. She said, and the biggest thing was when my husband saw me in the boots. She said his face lit up because he remembered that he'd bought them and he was always wondering why I hadn't worn them. And he thought that he'd bought the wrong thing. And she was like, I'm amazed at what difference a pair of boots can make. And I'm like, it's not the boots, it's how you feel. The boots are just kind of the trigger. They're the pathway to getting you there. And I think that's a big thing. It's about finding those pieces that make you feel fabulous. There are pieces like that out there for everybody. And also the great thing with fashion is none of it is permanent. So if you go out and you wear something, you think, right, do you know what's the best thing for me? The best thing that's going to make me feel great about myself is, I don't know, a suede cowboy jacket. Let's be daft, right? Cowboy jacket. That's going to make me feel fabulous. Okay. And you go out and you wear that jacket and you don't feel fabulous in it. Well, you don't have to wear it again. It's not like for you for the rest of your life. Sell it, get a different jacket. You will find the pieces that when you wear them, they make you feel great. And it's just about putting in that bit of effort, which I think sometimes we don't do. We're quite happy to sit in our misery and sit in our kind of space of feeling uncomfortable and not confident and a bit meh, rather than trying to put ourselves out there and put that effort in. But honestly, life is far too short to wear boring clothes and to be bothered by the opinion of others.
I would absolutely agree there. There's a quote that I'm desperately trying to scrape from my mind of people so often worry about what other people think of them. People would stop worrying how much other people think of them if they realize how seldom they do. In essence, we always think, oh, what is this person going to think about me? What we don't realize is that other person is often thinking the exact same thing. Well, what is everyone else going to think about me? Nothing. No one else thinks of anything about other people for the most part, 99.9% of the
Yeah.
time. And if we do, it's often a, ooh, I like what that person's wearing, or that's cool. I want to know more about that. Very, very rarely have I ever experienced anyone saying, "Oh, that's horrible," or like that doesn't look good on you, or that just not even surrounding fashion, but just in general. Very rarely have I met people who are actually like very openly negative to other people. So I guess there is some human decency out there, but
And I
yeah,
agree completely. I think if somebody does make that comment, I think that's always the fear that somebody's going to say something. If somebody does make that comment, you just go, okay, that's your opinion.
hmm
That's absolutely fine. Like I've had it previously because I wear a lot of bright colors and bold prints, and I like to wear things that are a bit kind of what I deem to be either a bit fun or a bit daft, because that's the kind of stuff that I like to wear.
same.
And the amount of times where, so like, I on occasion will have had somebody who says to me, oh, that's very bold. And I think, okay, but would I take fashion advice from a 60-year-old middle-aged man who's wearing nothing that I would ever go near? No. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. I appreciate it. Thanks very much. You've made a little comment. That's fine. Cool. But it's irrelevant to me what your comment is. It's not my business, as it were. My business is when I catch a glimpse of myself walking down the street in the reflection of a window, do I go, oh my God, I look horrendous? Or do I go, oh my God, I love those shoes?
hmm
That's what I want to do. I want to walk down and catch a glimpse of myself and go, okay, this thing I'm wearing is ridiculous, but it's so fun.
Yep. I will say on the comment you made on the suede cowboy jacket, I do know one person who can pull that off. I know
Yeah.
one person, and every time I see him, I just think to myself, I don't know if there's anything this guy can't pull off.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that for him.
hmm But then back to your advice on taking a picture of yourself every day with your outfit. There's this idea in the self-help personal development community of whatever gets measured gets managed, and that's essentially the same thing for the principle that you just talked about of take a picture every day, look at it, and over time it just becomes a more objective view of does that look good on me? Yes, no. What can I do to make this thing better? Where just the thought process of going in and taking a look at what you wear, of what you do every day, say, this is what I look like today. I like it. Why do I like it? This is what I look like the next day. I don't like it. Why don't I like it? What could be better about it? Or what should I learn from this to say, I'm not going to do this again? Very good, very simple. Just there isn't any big vocabulary that anyone has to learn. You don't have to go study color theory or materials or patterns or anything. Just keeping it nice and simple. And I appreciate that.
It's also a great way of documenting your progress because you'll see where you started from and then if you continue to do it where you progress to, but also if you wear an outfit that you look at the picture of and you're like, I have smashed this, I am going to mic drop, I have won in the outfit stakes today, put it in a separate folder, because on that day where you felt brilliant in that outfit, if you wake up on a morning and you go, oh my God, I don't know what to wear, just go look in that folder on your phone and go, oh, I'm going to wear one of these because this was great. And it's a really good habit to get into of going, right, I don't know what to wear today. I feel a bit stuck. I feel a bit meh. I'm going to go and look and pick a really great outfit. Because my other big tip is that if I'm having a bad day, I will go get changed. I will always just go get changed. If it's all going wrong, I'm like, right, I need to put on something different because it will change my mood. It will change how I feel about myself. And if I'm having a particularly stressful day and I'm not coping well with it for whatever reason, I'm like, right, okay, that's it. I need to put something else on. And it might be that I go, right, I need a blazer because I'm feeling like everybody's talking over me. Nobody's listening to me. So I'm going to put on a power blazer. I've suddenly got a structured shoulder and I'm going to sit a bit taller and it's going to change my whole posture. and I'm just going to present myself to the world differently and see what happens. And 9 times out of 10, it absolutely works. I'm a huge believer in just go get changed.
Yep. Getting changed is almost like just a great reset because
Yeah,
what do? Our habits are get up, work out, take a shower, get dressed, and that's what you wear for the day. But if you break that up to say, this is a bad day, I'm going to go get changed again, it's almost like starting a new day, at least mentally.
exactly.
Yeah, that's great advice. Not one that I've ever really thought about that much, but it makes a lot of sense. So, on that topic of changing clothes and perhaps changing the way you feel, I don't know if this ties in exactly, but trying to get it there. Uh, what are some of the worst style sins you see on a regular basis?
Oh, okay. So, one of my biggest pet peeves, and other people can cope with it, and that's absolutely fine. Everybody's individualistic. I'm totally cool with that. But I can't bear when I see people with really creased clothes, because it is literally like you've picked that up off the chair. Do you know everybody's got that chair in their bedroom and
Yep.
it's like the chair drobe or the floor drobe? And it's like you have not thought about that. You've just thrown that on. And to me, that smacks of you don't care enough about yourself, and you need to like just be have a bit more thought about what you're doing and about what you're wearing and how you feel about yourself, because I don't think anybody intentionally, unless it's like a fabric that's meant to be creased and look creased, linen, I'm looking at you. I think all of us want to look nice, and we want to look great, and we want to feel confident and happy in our clothes. And so I think wearing things that are just really hideously creased is a no for me. Just buy a steamer on Amazon for like £20. If you don't iron, I don't iron. I iron nothing. I don't even have an iron or an ironing board. I have a steamer. It's this big and it's like £20 on Amazon. It's super quick, takes literally a minute to heat up and a minute to do, and then I'm done. So yeah, creasing, big problem. And my other really big bugbear is clothes that don't fit properly. Sorry, I'll say it again. Clothes that don't fit properly. So you are never the problem, right? I don't care how much weight you've gained or how much weight you've lost or whether you've really worked out at the gym and you are stacked and your muscles are bursting out your clothes, or whether you haven't been to the gym in years and therefore the clothes that you once had when you were muscular now don't fit. You are never, ever the problem, okay? That is just your body. Whatever body you have, whatever shape it is, oh my God, it's doing incredible things. It blows my mind, the things our bodies can do. The fact that, like, I've been breathing throughout this entire conversation and I've not thought about it once. Things like that, I'm like, how is this even possible? Yet we're so
Congratulations.
quick.
You've cursed us for the rest of the episode where we're going to be
Yeah,
thinking about
exactly.
our
I'm going to
breathing.
think about it now. My brain's going to just constantly think about it. But how we are so obsessed with the fact that we gained a bit of weight or we lost a bit of weight, right? So my biggest thing is wear clothes that are the right size for you. I don't care what size that is, whether it's the size that you want to be or not. If that size bothers you, cut that label out. Just cut it out and forget about it. It doesn't matter what that size is. It matters, does that fit you? Does it make you feel great? Does it look good? They're the only things that matter. It really doesn't matter that once upon a time you were in a small and now you're in a large. Who cares? Do you look great? Do you feel good? That's what's really important. And I think that is my biggest bugbear, is that you've got to wear clothes that fit you properly. And just on a personal, very minor level, make sure your label's tucked in. So the amount of times I am on the tube in London and somebody's label's sticking out the back of their shirt and I'm like, sorry, excuse me, can I just tuck your label in? Just, it's a tiny thing. It's a tiny thing. It's bothering no one but me. It's bothering no one but me. But as a stylist, I really need to help you out with that. I really need to just tell you all, please tuck your labels in or just cut them out, whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would certainly agree with you on the clothes that don't fit particularly well for people. I feel like I regularly look around and see very poorly dressed people where a lot of them are men in particular who wear clothes that don't fit well or don't, like, they look like giant children is the best way I can describe it, where it's a man wearing something that's very oversized. And don't get me wrong, I have a couple pieces in my closet that I'm looking at right now that absolutely fit that definition. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's the look they want to go for. But as you've mentioned, it's probably not the message they're trying to send out to people. They want to look professional, they want to look like confident and powerful, but the message they're presenting is, I'm a child wearing my dad's clothing, is the
Yeah.
best way I can describe it. But on this topic of style sins, I have to ask, what's your worst in recent memory?
Oh, of mine
Oh,
personally,
yeah.
or just in general?
Yours personally.
Mine personally, what is my biggest style sin? Um, I will regularly. I still do it. I will always do it. I love shoes. I am a sucker for a heel. And even if it is like exceptionally painful, if it's really pretty, I will still man through that. I will still just go through it. And it's such a terrible fashion faux pas. I know that I shouldn't do it, but I just can't help myself. And I can walk in all heels. Like I like random kind of unnecessarily skill that I have is that I think from modeling, I'm really good in heels. So I can walk in all of the shoes that I own, but there are some where I'm like, oh my God, this is incredibly painful. All I can think about is how painful these shoes are, but they're so pretty, I'm not going to take them off.
But
It's a terrible thing.
but why? I have so many female
I
friends who
know.
do this. I don't understand. I ask, and every single one always says, "But I look so good in them." Like, is it worth it though?
Because when I catch a glimpse of those shoes, the pain disappears. I'm like, oh my God, this looks so good. It's so good. But yeah, the amount of times that I do it where I'm like, I'm dying. I am dying right now in these shoes. But will I take them off and put more comfortable shoes on? No, no, I shall not.
Every time you look in the mirror, you just get a little shot of adrenaline.
Exactly. It just keeps me going. It keeps me working through that pain.
Instead of carrying pain pills in your purse, you just carry a little mirror so that you can look down at your shoes every once in a
Exactly.
while.
Exactly. That's what I should be doing. I think for me, the whole like thing with the fashion faux pas is that the majority of them come from not dressing intentionally. You are not dressing with purpose. You are literally just throwing something on. And take that little bit of time. For me, I think getting dressed in the morning is an act of self care that you can do every single day. It is something that's going to impact you every single day. It's going to make you feel more confident. It's going to make you feel better about yourself. So, taking that extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is a day, to just be really intentional and thought out about what you're actually going to put on your body and what you're going to wear and how you're going to present yourself to the world, I think can make a huge difference. I think so many of us are just blindly kind of throwing things on in the morning because either that's society's idea of what we should be wearing, or we've just not thought about it. We've just fallen into this trap of, oh, I'm just going to throw on leggings and a t-shirt every day and I'm going to feel terrible about myself because it's just easy. Well, actually, it's not easy if it's making you miserable.
Mm-hmm. Are there any core pieces that you would recommend for any wardrobe?
Accessories. So I love accessories. And for me, accessories are a really easy way of getting into the idea of intentional dressing because predominantly, on the whole, they are non-essential pieces. So your belt, your watch, your jewelry, your handbag, your scarf, your hat, whatever it is, these extra bits and pieces that you put on your body aren't essential. So the moment you start accessorizing and putting extra things on, it starts to look like you care. Like you took the time to go, this t-shirt's really like plain and boring. Maybe I should just put on like a cool neck scarf, or maybe I should put on a cool necklace with it, and then it'll look like I've intentionally styled this. I've not just rolled out of bed and grabbed a t-shirt from the chair. I've actually thought about the t-shirt I'm going to wear and what accessories I'm going to put with it, and it really does make a difference. Whenever you see pictures on Pinterest of people who look really cool and who are in great outfits, I guarantee you, if you removed all of the accessories from them, they're probably in just a really plain, boring outfit, but they've made it look great by accessorizing.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. I personally noticed that when I've started adding a couple accessories here and there, I get a couple more comments, and I feel like my style is being more defined and developed. I'm well known for amongst my friends for my orange aviator glasses, where they have orange lenses. Like no one else around me wears these. it's just me, and then whenever they see it, like, oh, that's Orion. Or they see like other random pieces that I might wear. Like instead of wearing ties, I wear ascots because I don't know, I like them. They're cool. And they
Yeah.
think, wow, no one I know wears an ascot except for Orion. That's cool. And it's absolutely those little accessory pieces that when you add them together, they take you from just wearing the chair clothing to your own style, your own piece.
And they also don't have to be expensive. It's a really cost effective way to update your wardrobe. I think for a lot of people, they go, oh, well, I can't suddenly be into fashion because I haven't got that money spare to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe. You really don't have to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe. Just start by adding some extra little bits in that you can get really cheaply, and it will make a massive difference.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a bit about your podcast, Off the Hanger. I love the name, by the way. I listened to a couple episodes preparing for this, but tell me a bit about the show.
So, Off the Hanger is basically because I'm nosy. So I love the idea of everybody having this very individual sense of style. And so I have guests on Off the Hanger and I talk to them about all the favorite pieces in their wardrobe and the stories behind them. So we chat about their earliest fashion memory from childhood, the oldest piece that they have in their wardrobe, the newest piece that they have in their wardrobe, the most sentimental. I ask them about the fashion faux pas and the wardrobe malfunctions that they've had. And when it started out, there were other podcasts doing a similar type of format, but very celebrity driven. And I didn't want mine to be a celebrity driven thing because I think you don't necessarily get a lot of the time a celebrity's true sense of personal style. You get their stylist's style that has been created for them. And I do think there's a lot of celebrities out there that were they not a celebrity, they wouldn't have that sense of style. They'd be wearing completely different things because the style that they have been given by their management team or their PR or whatever suits the narrative of how they want to portray this celebrity. So I wanted it to be a real mix of all different types of people from all different walks of life because I think that's more relatable, but it's also just way more fun. So I've had drag queens, I've had fashion designers, I've had people who work in the corporate world. I had a brilliant entrepreneur who lives in a van driving across America, so has a teeny tiny wardrobe, still making it stylish, looking really cool. I've had a lady who's got a trans lingerie brand, all different kinds of people. And I think it's just fascinating rummaging through people's wardrobes because everybody's got these incredible stories. And I think a lot of the times we don't appreciate our own wardrobes. And all of the guests tend to say to me, oh my God, I had so much fun going through and picking the things. And I'd forgotten about this thing. And it brought up this memory and that memory. And it's all intertwined in our clothes. And so it was just me being able to have a lovely chat with somebody about fashion and get to rummage through their wardrobe.
Well, I gotta do this to you. After listening to a couple episodes, I jotted down a couple of your most asked questions. And
I don't answer my questions.
Hmm?
I don't answer my questions.
You don't answer your own questions?
I don't answer. Everybody asks me my own questions. It's a thing where everybody asks me my own questions, and I've said that I don't answer my own questions. That maybe when I get to 100 episodes, I might finally give my answers.
All right,
but
I'll respect
I don't
it.
answer my questions.
Yeah, I'll respect it. That said, I do have one or two that aren't your own questions on here.
That's okay. I'll answer those quite happily.
Yes. So, what's some fashion advice you would give to your son or to your younger self?
Okay. So my son quite regularly gets my fashion advice, but I very much believe that we're all individuals when it comes to fashion. Whether you are a child or a grown up, you're all an individual. So when we buy his clothes, he's always had input into that. I've never kind of gone off and styled him. And I think often people expect that from me. I think that I'm going to have this like perfectly styled little kid and he's going to be really, no, he's cool on his own. He's got his own sense of style. There's things that I like die inside that when he wears because they're definitely not my taste, But that's okay. He loves them, and I'm totally here for that. And the biggest thing that I say to him, and the biggest piece of advice that I live by and that he lives by, is that there should be no gender in fashion. Like, there's not boy clothes and there's not girl clothes. There's clothes. And if you like something, I don't care where it came from. I don't care what department it came from. You wear that thing. We've got very stuck in this idea that we have to wear the clothes that have been assigned to our gender, and that actually it's okay if women want to go and wear menswear. That's totally acceptable. But if a guy wants to pick something that's from the women's department, that's not acceptable. And I'm not here for that at all. There are brands like ASOS who are doing incredible things with like gender fluid fashion and unisex fashion, which I think is awesome. And so quite regularly, because my poor son gets dragged around all the women's shops with me, he's often picked up like chains and necklaces and cool things and gone, I really like this. Can I have this? And I'm like, absolutely. I don't care that it's in the women's department. I care that you think it's cool. That's what it is. I want you to think that what you're wearing is cool. It's not for me to think that it's cool. It's not for anyone else to think that it's cool. Just you. I want you to think you look cool.
I think that's the best way that we can end this. So, Emma, where can people go to hear more from you, to learn more about what it is that you do?
So if you head to Off the Hanger Official, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram. You can find all about Off the Hanger, the podcast, and also it's on YouTube, Spotify, all of those kind of things. And if you want to come and see some of my personal nonsense, that'll be on Emma Lightbown at Instagram. So yeah, Emma Lightbown, no R in the surname.
Yep. All the links will be in the description. Emma, thank you for coming on today. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it. It's been so fun chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. If you enjoyed this episode, then please share with a friend you think would like it, or share it on social media. It would absolutely mean the world to me, and it helps the podcast grow so much. With all that said, thanks for listening. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.